SLA Video Productions presents from the beautiful Westlake Community Services Center in Westlake, Ohio. It's Westlake Live!
So the interesting thing about what you're doing for, the community is that you offer all these different ways for people to compost and so tell us about how that works for the individual, for the business, for the restaurants, etc.
Sure. So I think part of our mission is to make composting and compost awareness accessible to all people, and as you shared earlier, we can't all compost in our backyard. Either we don't have the space, we don't have a backyard. There are neighborhood easements against having a compost pile, or we live in an apartment building or another kind of housing complex that says, no, you can't do this. Or maybe simply you just don't want to do the extra work, or can't, which, is a reality for lots of people.
It's not necessarily pretty, too. So if you have a nice landscape yard, you might not.
I think there are a lot of different ways to have a pile, and there are a lot of different composters, like tumblers and in-ground kinds of piles, and different ways that you can create a corral or a small space to have that pile be built up. And so while, it's not like a manicured lawn aesthetic, I think that that's actually, I would encourage pushing our boundaries a little bit on what we think of as aesthetically pleasing, because lawns aren't actually the best option for our environment either. There's a lot of runoff. There's very little water retention that comes from just like a flat, close clipped lawn. And so incorporating things like if you can set up your compost pile in a place where you want to have, say, a butterfly garden or a wildflower patch in your yard, then you're already building that soil in place where you want to have that garden. And so there are lots of different options, and we can, the internet is a plethora of photos for what compost piles can look like.
Plus, gives you a place to use those leaves, so not all your leaves have to be put on the curb to be taken by the city.
We like to say leave the leaves if you can, or if you can't just put them on your curb, find a place in your yard to leave the leaves. They're extremely important for nesting insects, for insects that need to go dormant in the winter to find a safe, warm place to do so, that then come back and pollinate all of our fruit trees and flowers and, flowering bushes. It's extremely important part. Leaves have a vital role to play in our biological diversity of our neighborhoods. But your original, I kind of veered off from the original question. Can you remind me of it?
How all the different services work.
Yes. Wow. Woo! Leave the leaves, different services. Well, anytime. Okay, great. So we'll leave the leaves there. Our services, right. So if you can't compost in your backyard, but you still want to combat food waste from your kitchen sink, we have two different options for residents. I'll share those, and then I'll get into our commercial services. So our resident services include a drop-off program. That's a $10 a month program where, after signing up online, you get a 4-digit code which gives you access to our lock-in compost containers. Some of the closest sites to Westlake include Bay Village, both at Bay Lodge and Reese Park. There's a site a little farther away in Avon Lake, and opposite direction in Fairview Park. So we're sort of right all around Westlake, not here yet, but hope to be in the coming future. And so that's our drop-off service. Again, all material accepted. We recommend collecting that material in a 5-gallon bucket. You can see behind me here is one of our 5-gallon buckets. But any 5-gallon bucket will work. I like that vessel for transporting the compost because, most importantly, it's reusable. And secondly, it has a nice secure lid so that when you are transporting your material, it stays in the bucket. That's the ideal, right? But any reusable container with a secure fitting lid will be just fine. There's no reason that you have to use a Rust Belt Riders bucket just to participate in the Rust Belt Riders program when you might already have an old bucket sitting in your garage. So that's what we like to go for. And then our pickup services are more geographically bound to certain communities, but that's our to-your-door service. It starts at $30 a month, and it goes up based on the level of commitment. So that's a weekly service, and we recommend for our drop-off members as well to bring the material weekly so that you get into this nice habit. Your bucket stays relatively clean. You know the amount. You start to become familiar with the amount of waste that you actually are creating, and that I also like to share with folks that just getting like a hand, even if you join for a month or a couple months, or you compost on your own for a little bit of time, you get a hand on your own waste, and you get a little more experienced with what your waste being thrown away means, because it doesn't actually go away, literally, it just goes somewhere else. But if you get your hands on it, you start to experience the away closer to home. And so the collection of that material does invite both a cleaner kitchen, a less stinky trash can, because let's be honest, sometimes our trash bags, when we take them out to our dumpsters, can have a terrible odor, and that's usually the result of like old food being mixed with tissues and plastic bits. And a cleaner kitchen, less stinky trash can, and you get a handle on like what you're producing, and it invites awareness. And so those are our residential services, the drop-off program, the pickup program. The drop-off program you can use anywhere. So anybody that lives in Westlake could participate in the drop-off program. Again, you would sign up online and find your nearest location to you. And then we have our commercial services. So focused in Cuyahoga County, our commercial services support any size business, from your smallest mom and pop diner to larger institutions like Case Western Reserve, John Carroll, the Cleveland Clinic are some of our larger clients. And then we also recently started servicing all of the Heinens in the Northeast Ohio area. And so that material, we service Heinens every day from every one of their locations. And then all of that material, we then take and turn it into our tilth soil products. And excuse me, for us, it was really vital that we close our own loop. And so if we are taking this material, we're collecting it, we're establishing jobs in that way, and the collection of material, reducing the amount that's sent to landfill. Well, what are we doing with that material? Making sure that it is getting composted, that it is getting used in a bulk topsoil mix or in our organic soil products is vital to making sure that we are creating a sustainable business that supports dignified green jobs in Cuyahoga County, while at the same time providing a nutrient-rich material back to home gardeners, farmers, even as simple as your potted plant enthusiast. And that's why we make a specific soil for each of those audiences.